Galka is your last name?
Yeah.
Okay, it's easy. All right.
You would think it's
Jackson.
easy, yeah.
It is. Why? What do you get?
Just everything under the sun, like, yeah, for sure.
Well, my last name is Couce.
Coos?
Coase.
Coase, okay.
Doesn't make any sense in the English language.
Right.
In English. But, yeah, so I get, and my first name's Alysa.
Yeah.
Alysa. So I get Alyssa, and then I get Coos. So, like, my first and last name is just destroyed
Butchered,
at
yeah,
all
I
times.
get it.
Anyway,
Cool.
All right. Jackson Galka, welcome to Jits and Giggles.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so let's start. So we were messaging a little bit. So you just opened a gym, the North Star Academy. Is that right?
Yeah.
So tell me about that. How long has it been open?
Well, so we've been open for about like 8.5 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
We just moved to a new facility, and so that was like kind of a big deal. But even before that, I started in about 2004, and since about 2006 onward, pretty much my entire adult professional career has been in like the mixed martial arts industry. So I was working as like a program director for a while, but I opened up the gym in 2017. It's not like a crazy story, but I had like $3,000 to my name and just like really bootstrapped everything.
Wow.
And so it's just kind of like taken on a life of its own, which has been really fascinating to see.
Sure.
A lot of like personal lessons and like character growth along the way.
I bet.
But we happened along this like really amazing facility, which is like an old church.
Yeah.
And 2.5 years later, we moved in, and it was just like this big project. And so like stained glass windows, got a pipe organ and stuff. It's like really cool.
Very cool.
And yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing like how that can contribute to maybe like the landscape in Philadelphia for jiu-jitsu, for kickboxing stuff, because we do a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So when did you move into the church?
So I had to move out of my last location by July 31st or July 30th. So basically, we've been in there for about a month.
Oh, wow. So that's the new part, is just being in this church.
Yeah, just being in the new facility is the new part. Yeah.
How did you even come across this?
So LoopNet is like this commercial real estate listing. It's kind of like the Craigslist for like commercial real estate. In my experience, like working as like a program director, we've done a couple like real estate deals where we've had to move gyms to new locations, and just that process can be anywhere from like, 12 to 18 months long. So
Right.
I knew that I had to start looking soon, and we're in Northwest Philadelphia. Like we were in Germantown, now we're in Mount Airy, and in that Philadelphia kind of like suffers from like just a lot of like colonial infrastructure and architecture. So finding like a large space that doesn't have columns or like weird stuff is really challenging. So we were coming from like a 5,300 square foot facility, which is like pretty big, and trying to find something comparable was like nearly impossible. So this church kept popping up, and it was just like haunting me, because I'm just like, it's like the coolest place.
It is really cool looking.
And yeah, it just kept haunting me, and we got it done. It was like a pretty intense deal. I think the details of which are like super boring, so I'm not gonna, let's cut to the chase.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of back and forth, a lot of things that almost went super wrong. Like, definitely like came through by the skin of my teeth on some of these things, almost lost everything, blah, blah, blah. Not really almost, but I was really vulnerable for a while. And then, somehow it all came together. And so that's kind of been a blur, but like the actual transition is like moving into a new gym, cleaning out a gym. I had like 3-4 days to get it done. Was challenging. So the last month I'm just kind of like recharging my battery and just trying to like get back to the land of the living a little bit.
Very cool. I imagine that like being in this big church with these stained glass windows probably brings a certain type of marketing. Like I feel like people just think it's a cool environment and probably just want to train just based solely on that.
Yeah, it's cool, but I think that like it's more like the experience, and I kind of anticipated this from the beginning, is like if you're just kind of like a nobody in high school, but you get a cool car, everybody just wants to ride somewhere.
Right.
But they're not like paying for your gas money, right? So it's like I've had a lot of people drop in and there's been some interest in the space, and it's been cool to kind of like participate in the community. Is just sort of like this novel new thing that's happening. But at the end of the day, like running a gym is just a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of like fundamentals. So whether we have stained glass windows or plate glass windows or no windows, like you still got to like mop the mats, clean the toilets, stuff like
and make
that.
money.
Yeah.
You actually bring up an interesting point. I feel like I obviously don't own a gym, but I cross train at a lot of gyms. I talk to a lot of coaches on and off the podcast, and there is this difficulty or this touchy subject where like you want your gym to be accessible to as many people as possible, but you're still a business.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Because a lot of people do want free handouts, or they want to just drop in and take the cool pictures. How do you navigate that?
Oh my God. I mean, like bane of my existence, right? Like nobody gets into jiu-jitsu to make money, whether you're like a gym owner, an athlete, competitor, doing a podcast, right? Like this is a passion project.
Yeah.
And so like, I think one of the natural progressions as an athlete, I have a background in mixed martial arts. And so I did have like a whole career. It's just sort of like, okay, what is my next step? What is my next role and identity in this community? Because it's really hard to give up. Like it'll suck you in, right? All your relationships and stuff. So you open up a gym and then it's like, well, how do I make this work, right? How do I pay everybody that I owe money to? How do I pay myself? How do I plan for the future and stuff like that? So the intersection of like commerce and art and sort of is a really tricky one to navigate. And I think it's just like for everybody, it's a little bit different. For me, I don't know. I work pretty hard.
Yeah.
And I just think about like, what would be the type of environment that I want to train in. I want to give a shout out to one of your previous guests, Skylar. So she shared like this story about like her experience being in a cult. And that really resonated with me because I had a very similar experience like in the martial arts industry. And I'm maybe not to the same degree that she experienced, but like I was like, having like weird PTSD flashbacks, being like, I totally know this because like the infrastructure of like cultism and like abuse and stuff like that is built into the hierarchy of martial arts. And so it's really easy for things to go off the rails where somebody, whether through like bad intentions or just through neglect or just through ignorance, can create an environment that's like maybe not super healthy for some of the people that are in it. So having been through that experience, I think I learned a lot, and I'm like really like footnoting, 15 years of my life, like some really, really serious experiences. But you learn a lot about like what to do and you learn a lot about what not to do. And I think that going through that has made me like a little bit more sensitive and maybe aware. Like the awareness is really important of like, how do we mitigate these issues and make sure that like certain like weird cultism things don't happen. So
Are there any examples or situations you've been in now as an owner, and can you explain like how you do it differently because of what you went through?
Wow. Man, it's tough. I think that like, I think one of the most important things is like understanding that if you're an instructor or if you're an owner, you're not like the main character. I think that's the most important thing. And it's really, really, really easy. You see this happen a lot where somebody gets in front of a group of people because they maybe have like a very specific skill set. Like for example, like you can show somebody how to kill somebody with a jacket, like, and that's like your skill set. You're really good at it. But you start to confuse that authority with like the ability to tell people how to live their lives or like morality, politics, and stuff like that. And so really making sure that like I step away and I don't get in the way of other people's development, I think is really important. It's kind of funny because like hopefully somebody listens to this podcast that like I know, and hopefully they're not like, this guy's totally full of shit because he's like always in my way. It's a balancing act because you also have to like set the tone and make sure that like etiquette and rules are being enforced. But I try to just step back and not let like how I'm feeling dictate like the vibe of the room. That's really important. I had a coach, and again, like I don't necessarily want to get too much into like personal details because these people are around and like, they have like lives and families and like, they got to put food on the table. But I did have one coach. He had substance abuse issues. He was bipolar, and he was really, really cool sometimes, and he was really, really not cool other times. And like I remember like at my gym, you'd have to walk up 2 flights of stairs to get there. So it's a second floor gym. And every day, because I worked there, I'd hear him come in and he had like a chain wallet, and I'd hear the rattling of his keys and his chains. And I'd be like,
oh my God.
Like, is it going to be a good day or a bad day? You know what I mean? And like his mood would dictate the mood of the entire room. And so like when he was mad, nothing was right. Nothing could be done properly. So I try to do my best to like remove myself from that situation, that sort of behavior. Other than that, it's like, and this could be maybe like another way to go with this conversation, but I feel that like the amount of experience, resources, knowledge, whatever it takes to open up a gym is very, very low. And so there's just a lot of like inadequate training spaces out there, whether it's through personnel, whether it's facilities, whether it's hygiene, whether it's cleanliness. And so I always try to like stay ahead and make sure that like I'm constantly investing into the gym, like literally with my time or my knowledge, my education, or just like putting money into the gym to make it a better place
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't
No,
know.
that's a good point because, like, I know myself, there are people out there that are just excellent athletes, and it's like a lot of their goals are to open a gym one day.
Yeah, yeah.
But we all know just because you're an amazing athlete doesn't make you a great business owner, right? There's so many other things you need to be able to do.
Yeah, like you got to keep the bathrooms clean. I was like,
Yeah, you have to be good at business. You have to be good at handling money. You have to be good at communicating with people that are paying you to come to your business. There's just so many attributes you have to have that are more than just being good at jiu-jitsu.
yeah, but I think that like being good at jiu-jitsu, assuming that you like come into gym ownership, and this is like maybe for anybody listening that wants to open a gym one day, just like jiu-jitsu, just like you kind of like get the test first and then you get the lesson second. You know, it's like you have to figure things out. You have to rely on your problem solving and grit.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, people might look at some of these like really, really amazing gyms that are out there and sort of see like the finished product, but they didn't see like the white belt version of that gym that was struggling. You know, the mistakes that I've made as a coach and a business owner, like the people that I've disappointed, like I've dropped a lot of balls, like I've made a ton of mistakes, you know? And so that all gets wrapped up into sort of like experience and education. And you just sort of like, you know, learn from your mistakes. So as long as you have like the right attitude, and I think that martial arts really gives you the tools to do that, it's very accessible for a lot of people. And so, you know, I'm working, we have a guy that coaches at our gym and he's interested in opening up his own spot. And I'm like super excited because it really is like the evolution of a competitor into like the next stage of their career. And so like, I'm really excited to just sort of like see people succeed and grow their business, you know, especially if I believe in them as like being good people and being somebody that like can stand in front of a room and like guide people in the right direction. You know what I mean?
What do you think about yourself allows you to be excited for that person rather than some of these owners who are not excited to see people move on and do for themselves?
I mean, if I had like a coach that like opened up a mile down the street, would not be super excited about it. You know what I mean? So it's like there's definitely conflicts of interest, and I think that like the story of jiu-jitsu is that you know, to some degree you are training your competitors as a coach, right? So it's just something you have to kind of come to terms with, but it's not a zero-sum game. And I think that some people like look at like Philadelphia, for example, like the Philadelphia area. Like Philadelphia proper has like 1.2 million people, and there's maybe like 3,000 people training jiu-jitsu in Philadelphia. Like there's enough room for everybody.
For sure.
And you know, one of the things that really I love about like the martial arts community, whether it's MMA or Muay Thai or jiu-jitsu, is like the fact that it is a community. And you know, the community itself is served by like spreading and growing and having people sort of like flesh out, and that competition can be healthy. So it sort of raises standards across the board. So I like a little bit of competition to sort of like keep me sharp. You know what I mean?
For sure. No, that iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
So you coach MMA and jiu-jitsu?
So I'd say like primarily now and where I'm at in like my life is I'm primarily like a striking coach.
Okay.
Competitively. Like I love jiu-jitsu. It's probably the thing that I personally like to do more than anything else, just at my age, athletic level, whatever, right? I'm not a super like I'm a good example of like somebody who can be around jiu-jitsu for 21 years and still kind of suck, right? I mean, we all kind of suck at jiu-jitsu, but 21 years you'd think you'd be really good. I'm a black belt, which is largely just like a participation trophy. And, you know, I'm super proud of that, but I'm not super good at jiu-jitsu, but I've sort of found my stride coaching striking athletes. And I really, I love the sport of Muay Thai. It's one of my favorite sports. It's just so beautiful, and it's like jiu-jitsu, but it's a little bit more fast-paced. So I do a lot of that. My like competitive background is primarily in mixed martial arts, and so I did have like a small pro career before I, you know, everybody's got this story, like blew out my elbow, stopped, whatever.
Yeah.
But the mixed martial arts scene has changed so much in the last 10 to 15 years in Philadelphia that like you can't really train MMA fighters unless you're training MMA fighters, unless that's like your bread and butter. So like, you know, we talked about Marquez MMA, amazing program that like John has done so much with like his athletes, but that is like not an environment for a 40-year-old dude with three kids to like learn jiu-jitsu, right? So those guys are living and breathing MMA. and associated like tangential stuff. But I think for other sports like jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, like there's some room to sort of like, there's some space in Philadelphia to be like sort of specialized in that as well. But yeah, if you're training MMA, if you want to train MMA in Philadelphia, like I get a lot of crazy people. It's like kind of a joke between me and some of these other school owners. Like we'll get some crazy person who's like, I want to be a UFC champion. Like I think I got what it takes. Like I see red, you know, like I beat up my brother. We're like, oh yeah, Marquez is great. Like go to Marquez.
Go down there.
Cause like, I'm sure they can handle those people. Like I just
sure.
I don't want to deal with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's not your bread and butter.
Yeah.
How would you describe your coaching method?
Dry.
Try.
You know, I think that like one of the things that you need to learn to do as an athlete is sort of separate like the emotion from the sport. And fighting, whether it's jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, MMA, any sort of like combat, is really like brings up a lot of feelings. Like it's just like a high stress, high anxiety, like you have sense of like identity wrapped into it. Especially I can only speak for like being a man, but like your sense of like your toughness and your ability to like protect your turf is like deeply woven into your sense of like self-esteem and your identity. So it's like a really like crazy mental thing. But over time you start playing this sport, and it really is a sport. And you realize that like whether we're playing soccer, football, or punching each other in the face, it's a sport with fundamentals. It's a sport with rules. It's a sport with strategies. And so the more that we can kind of separate like how we feel, like all that sort of like the media does a great job of like making fighting more than it is, right? But if the more we can kind of separate ourselves from like all that spectacle and get down to like fundamentals of like footwork, balance, conditioning, combinations, strategy, pacing, all that stuff, the better people are going to be. And so I really just, I think what can be challenging working with me, for example, is that like I expect like a long-term commitment, because getting rid of that sort of like that emotional baggage that may or may not drag you down, but typically will sort of like impact your performance for the worse, is something that can take like 5 to 10 fights, and 5 to 10 fights can be like 2 to 3 years of competing. So it is like a long-term process. And like for some of my athletes who have kind of broken through that first barrier, like I think they're starting to see that, and they see like the bigger picture. They've been pretty successful. But, you know, sort of getting somebody, you know, across that first milestone is like, it can be really challenging, because they want it to be something else. Like they want the experience to be something else. You know, I love jiu-jitsu, and maybe this is a hot take, but you know, jiu-jitsu is a sport designed for people who are not good at sports to also be successful, to find places where they can be successful. I'm not saying it's easy to win a jiu-jitsu tournament, but if you're, you know, 63 years old, you're 189 pounds, and you're a white belt, there's a category for you where you can compete against your avatar. In mixed martial arts and Muay Thai, it's like your weight class. And if that dude's a killer, or if that woman's a killer, like you're in trouble. Like, you know, so I think the level, like the bar for entry is a little bit higher in sports that involve like striking. But jiu-jitsu, I mean, the highest level of jiu-jitsu is still like phenomenal. Like there's still like, you know.
Right. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I think that's valid. I mean, we can see in a room of jiu-jitsu, we have all types of people, athletic, non-athletic, big, small, you know, nerdy. Like, I think that's what's beautiful about jiu-jitsu too. But I see what you're saying. Like and I've heard this from a lot of people with MMA, there's not as much grace for you to get in there. The barrier to entry is harsher, I guess you could say. So it's a different ball game for sure. I was going to ask you were talking about like your athletes and, you know, going through like different emotions. How do you handle that as a coach?
You know, I think that there's like stages of coaching, you know, just like there's stages of athleticism. And I don't necessarily think that I'm at like the pinnacle of coaching. I still have so much to learn. I think when people start out, they think that there's going to be like one way to do things or like one process. And people are definitely like, you can kind of tell like who's kind of an amateur coach by how much of a stickler they are for like the rules. And I think as you get a little more experience, you realize that you're dealing with like super complex people. So everybody's a little bit different, and you just have to kind of understand like where they're coming from, what their strengths and what their weaknesses are, and sort of like what they need to perform at their best. I mean, certain things are going to be like I say, fundamentals, but other things are, you know, understanding like the story and the narrative of their competitive life and their personal life, and like how this event fits into that story, and framing that story in such a way that helps them perform better. I would say that largely speaking, competitively, like, you know, whether it's jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai or MMA, like the thing that you're doing on stage is the same thing that you do every single day in practice. And everything that is like the lights, the ring card, men and women, like the announcers, the music, like the crowd is designed to make it seem like it's more than what it is. So building a bridge between like the competition and the mental state of competition and the mental state of practice is really important. But again, like you kind of like get that lesson after you have the experience. So you really have to go in there and flounder a little bit for your first couple events, and then contextualize that stuff. So I think preparing for athletes for fights or for competition really depends on where they are in their athletic career as well. So newer people, it's like, let's train really hard. Let's go in there. Let's do our best. You know, let's learn from this experience, win or lose. And then as you get a little bit more experience, it's like, okay, we're here to win, and this is what we need to do to win.
Right.
You know, there's putting a little bit more emphasis on the outcome can be, you know, kind of important as you get like further along in your career.
For sure. Do you feel like your background in MMA and competing in your past allows you to be a better coach in those moments?
Yeah, I think you have to have been in there to know what it's like. Yeah, it's weird. Like I know of like some, I'm not gonna name any names, but there, especially in like the kickboxing community, like some people who open up gyms or who start programs, they don't have the experience and they're training fighters, and it's like, you know, at best, that athlete's not gonna get what they need to be successful, and at worst, that athlete can be like seriously injured. Like the course of their life, the trajectory of their life can be altered. Like maybe they get a major concussion, they get a broken jaw, or they just have like a super traumatic experience where like this person that they trusted to prepare them for this event didn't prepare them properly. They go out there and they get like humiliated in front of like their friends and family, and it's like that experience can take them away from martial arts forever. And you know, and again, away from that, meaning like away from all the benefits and the stuff that you could get in maybe a more structured or appropriate environment. So yeah, you absolutely 100% have to have some ring experience, because like there's nothing like being inside of a ring or a cage with like somebody, and your universe just shrinks down. It's like that person has been thinking about hurting you for the last 2 months.
Right.
And like that's all they've been thinking about. And now you're like locked in a cage with that person, and they're going to try and hurt you, and you got to like hurt them first. It's like really terrifying.
Yeah, I bet.
So but once the bell rings, you know, everything's fine. But yeah, it'll like mess with your head a lot. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so what I can imagine in that moment, it's so important to have, you know, certain people around you, such as a coach who knows what the hell they're doing, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that like, you know, I have a lot of admiration for a lot of the coaches that are in the Philly area. I want to shout out like Charlie Catone, Aaron Meisner, the guys at Juniper Muay Thai. Like I'm a little more plugged into like the Muay Thai scene and the coaching there. I've been, you know, obviously it's hard not to see what John Marquez and those guys are doing over there, because they're everywhere. And I think a coach sets like a pace and creates a culture, and sort of like, you know, the technical aspects of coaching, I think, are not as important as sort of like the culture that you create and what you emphasize in the room. I think that's the most important thing. So like knowing what to emphasize and know what kind of culture creates success is really important. So I think like you take Bill Belichick. I'm listening to his audiobook right now. He's, you know, I listen to a lot of audiobooks from like coaches. You could put him in any sport, and he's going to have like an amazing team.
Yeah.
It's the fundamentals of football obviously are super important, but baseball, basketball, combat sports, like he's an excellent coach because he has that skill set, like the soft skills.
Right.
So yeah, but I think you definitely need to have been in the fire a little bit, got burned a little bit, you know, experience the best, experience the worst, you know. Yeah, losing in front of you, getting beat up in front of like your friends and family is like humiliating. It'll do stuff to you, and you know, but give you like, it's a super valuable experience as well. So
for sure. Yeah. And it allows you to like relate now to your current athletes. So speaking of which, let's go back a little bit. What did you start with? What sport did you start with?
Okay. I'll try to give you like my history.
Yeah.
All right. So I grew up in Chicago. I was born in
Okay.
1982. I'm 43. I grew up watching Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal, like all that stuff. Super into it. So when the UFC came out in 1993, I was 11 years old, and we're like, oh my god, like Jean-Claude Van Damme is finally gonna fight Steven Seagal. We're gonna see like what happens when like kickboxing fights Aikido, and so we're like so stoked. We rent the pay-per-view. We're watching it, and it's like Hoist Gracie is just like hugging this dude, and we're like so bored, right? And it just kind of like, it was kind of a weird experience, but we stuck with it. And then we started having like weird little UFC fights. Like, oh my God, he's got the guard. You know, it was like the most, the guard was like the most powerful move. Like, he got the guard. I moved to Philadelphia, so that was Chicago. I moved to Philadelphia in 96, and my brother had been wrestling in Chicago at the time. So not knowing anybody, kind of, you know, it was a tough part of my life. I joined the wrestling team. The irony being that, like, as a tall and skinny guy, I'm like, I'm going to bulk up. I'm going to get, like, super jacked doing this wrestling thing. And so it's, like, all about cutting weight and being small. So, like, my senior year, I wrestled at 130 at, like, 5'11". I dabbled a little bit at this place called Philly Sambo, which was a really, really weird place, but was kind of like the proto gym of what would be Fight Factory. So you have Stephen Higg, Eddie Alvarez, like those guys. So we kind of like knew some of those guys early on. I went off to college. I did a year and a half of wrestling at Ithaca College. So I was like a decent, mediocre wrestler. Ithaca was a D3 program, but like top 10. And when I got back to Philadelphia, like it's 2004, I have a worthless English degree. Like I graduated with English. I wanted to be an English teacher. And just like living at home, you know, after like years of independence, living at home, kind of depressed. It's like the same story.
Yeah.
Like I was listening to you and Skylar talk about how you guys got started, right? Same thing. It's like you're searching for something. And I remember it like super clearly. I'm like lying on a couch. I have like a bowl of ice cream on my chest. I'm kind of just like eating my feelings. And I was watching the original Karate Kid, which is like a super hokey movie.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I'm going to fucking do it. Like, I'm going to go. So I typed Philly MMA on Google, and, you know, shout out to Brad Daddis and those guys. He ran a gym called Philly MMA because back in the day, you could dominate the internet by just like having your website be the search term. And I was living in about like an hour and a half away from the gym. It's not like today when you could throw a rock and like hit a black belt. So yeah, I just started training there, and that was 2004 October. Haven't looked back since.
Wow.
I would drive like 90 minutes down and 60 minutes back.
So you were how old?
22.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was like sort of like always like a thread through my life. And then after college, I just kind of got into it. I just wasn't happy with like my personal life. And it was like, you know, as you know, it's like, boom, immediate like camaraderie, people that are interested in the same stuff you're interested in. Like, you know, you don't have to think about stuff because you're like just trying not to die all the time, right? Like kind of like that Zen, like dodging bullets thing. And just sort of like, combat sports is a true activity where like what you put in, you can get out. Like there's no fluff. Like if you commit and you do the work, you get the results. And there's something that was always really attractive to me about that, for whatever reason. And so I just, yeah. And then with competition, it's like you dabble a little bit, you get a little like, have a little bit of success. You're like, oh, this is cool. And then like, before you know it, like, your life does a whole like right turn, 90-degree turn, and you're just like, I'm like all into this shit. Like I'm fighting, like I'm a fighter, like I'm doing all this stuff. And, you know, before you're like, how did I get here? But that's just what it is. And so that just became my life and my calling at this point. Like I'm just sort of accepted that like, this is what I do.
Right.
Like,
was there a point where you were like, I want to go pro?
Yeah. The pro thing is really funny because it's like, so much of combat sports is like clout chasing. And I don't mean that necessarily in like a pejorative, but it just kind of is. And especially with social media, it's like everybody's like has their journey and this and that. And so it's like, you know, when you're an amateur fighter, you're not a pro fighter. And like, that's the goal. The goal really should be to build skills and build a career and like have the professional debut be sort of like a manifestation or like sort of a, you know, part of that life cycle. So I was definitely like super fixated on that. just for like a sense of like identity, maybe accomplishment. And, you know, I racked up, fought like about 20 amateur fights between Muay Thai and MMA. And then, you know, I had 5 professional fights before I like, it's a long story, but like it sucked because I'd like just gotten this like Bellator contract. I was like, cool. I'm going to do it. Like I won this whole tryout thing. It was like a big deal. And then, I got staph in my face, ended up in the hospital, and they put me on some medication, that I had an allergic reaction to. And that just sort of created some complications. And I broke my arm punching a bag.
Oh my
I didn't know it
God.
was broken, but like, yeah, it doesn't straighten. So
oh
like,
my God.
I was just like, I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
you know, they don't pay you any money, you know, like from the outside looking in, like it looks really cool, but, professional fighters in MMA definitely make more than professional kickboxers, but you're still earning like minimum wage for the time you put in. Yeah. And it's like time to grow up. I was like 30 years old.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's like, it's funny, like when you get into this world, like, cause jiu-jitsu bleeds into the MMA and the Muay Thai world, you start getting to know all different types of athletes. Yeah. You realize a lot of people, it looks like their lives are a lot cooler till you get to know them. Now, some of them, their lives really are that cool. Yeah. But some, they're literally struggling like all of us. Yeah. You just wouldn't know it.
There's like, and it's so wild because, like, I love the media. Like the media is definitely like making MMA or combat sports seem attractive, and it's like allowing people like me to have a lifestyle, working full time, but at the same time it like sells a dream. And there's a lot of like wayward youths that are out there that are like, I don't have any skills, I don't have any education. I'm going to be a professional fighter. This is going to be my ticket out of like whatever like my lifestyle is. And then the reality of being a professional fighter is like, it's a job. You got to show up on time. You got to do the work, and you got to like go through poverty before you get to any sort of like payout, maybe 4 or 5 years down the line. So I probably, in terms of like how much money I earned fighting professionally, I probably have broken even over time between like what I earned and what I spent.
Right.
You know, so it's like,
that makes
doesn't really
sense.
like,
that's probably
didn't put food on the table, you know?
Yeah, that's probably honestly the most common thing that most people are going through is you're just putting the money back into the sport that you love. You're not really walking away with as much as people think.
And some of these guys are like, and men and women are just like, incredible athletes, like super talented, like really cool people, just have so much presence and all this stuff. And it's like, they deliver for Amazon. You know, it's like, fuck, that sucks so bad. Right. You know, it really sucks that there's not more opportunities in the sport. But, you know, with CJI too, you know, being this like attempt at, I don't know if attempt is the right word, but like, you know, growth of the sport, it's still like, we still have a long way to go before it's jiu-jitsu specifically can be mainstream, if it ever can be mainstream.
And the UFC as well, right? Like the UFC is kind of bringing some light to jiu-jitsu. Hopefully all these things combined, we'll start to see jiu-jitsu become profitable.
I don't know. It's like you got, on one hand, like I feel like MMA, like if there's a spectrum, like MMA, you know, like combat sports are in the center, and on like one end of the spectrum is jiu-jitsu, and on the other end of the spectrum is like power slap. And it's like to move jiu-jitsu up towards MMA, like it's going to be really, really tough to make it marketable, because people just want to see like violence, blood. Like they don't really care about the artistry. Like the kinds of people, like the casual fan that has money to spend. I mean, jiu-jitsu is like a sport that is supported by its athletes. Like we're all athletes, we're all participants, we're all part of the community, and it's sort of like this very insular economy. But there's no interest really from like the outside world at large to like invest heavily into jiu-jitsu. They're investing into like power slap, you know, and like, so it's like, it's really sad.
The wow factor. It's funny because the biggest issue I think is just educating like a lot of these people, you know, they're big MMA fans and they understand a couple jiu-jitsu moves because of MMA. They understand like armbar and rear naked choke and like, you know, the very common things. I was reading the comments from CJI, and, you know, when Craig submitted Child, they're like, Child's on top. Like, I don't understand. Like, what, like he won. And I'm like, my mind was like blown. But like, then again, why is it blown? Because like, why would they understand? But to somebody who's just in the world now, I'm like, the man went to sleep, and you have to educate them on how it works.
Yeah, it's like, man, man, I mean, like probably the first time you had alcohol, right? It's like, why does anybody like this? It's like so nasty. It like makes you feel ill.
Yeah.
And it's like an acquired taste, and it
Yeah.
requires like investment and education and time. And jiu-jitsu is just sort of like, it's really, really hard to get that education if you're not doing it to really understand the like how powerful it is. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure like you've probably rolled with, you've been, you know, adjacent to like some really, really high level grapplers. And like, even somebody, maybe my experience level, your experience level, whatever, like decent competitor, we're just like a toy to these people. Like
So
there's
true.
absolutely like zero chance in hell that we're going to score or even get like any offense off. And like nobody who's ever, people who haven't done any grappling, they just can't even conceive of like what that is like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's another thing is watching jiu-jitsu is the most interesting to people who do it. So
Yeah.
that's the other barrier. It's like us who have done jiu-jitsu, we're like, oh, that was so cool, or I know that position they're in feels like shit, but if you've never done it, it's not that interesting. It's
No,
just not.
it's super boring. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Like, that was me at 11 years old watching
Yeah.
Hoist Gracie like submit all these people, which was like phenomenal. Like, it changed the course of martial arts history. But like in the moment, like you're just like, this sucks. Like, I want to see like, you know, Steven Seagal like wrist lock somebody. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's tough, man. And one thing I thought was like kind of interesting about CJ, and as I mentioned before we got started, like I happened to be at like a family function this weekend, so I couldn't really watch. But the U.S. Open is on, and then you have CJI too, and like in some ways they couldn't be more different. Like
Right.
tennis is like this like institution, this sport that's an institution, and so there's decorum, there's like etiquette, there's like standards, and then CJI is like this like carnival, like it's just like a circus.
Sorry.
You know, like I love jiu-jitsu, and like I'm not here to like talk smack about it because it's my life and it's my passion. But like, you know, we got to get past some of these like sexist, you know, homophobic jokes. Like let's like mainstream a little bit. Like it doesn't have to be accessible to everybody, but I think that like, you know, that kind of like, I think the time for that aspect of the culture has passed, and it's like let's move forward a little bit. This is me talking. It's just like some random guy who just has an opinion. Like I'm not an authority on any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm not like somebody who's going to move jiu-jitsu forward by any means. But just as like somebody who participates, maybe it's because I'm getting a little bit older, but I'm like, yeah, you know, like, do I really like, if I had kids, like, would I want them to be like idolizing these people?
Of course.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not a huge tennis fan, but gosh, Roger Federer. I love watching sports documentaries, especially like of like GOATs, right? This dude, he was just the man. He was just like super articulate, super dedicated to his craft, humble, like just like a consummate sportsman, and like just like, you know. And then in jiu-jitsu, it's kind of like you have, and I love Craig Jones. Like he's funny, but he's just like, you know, snorting coke and like, you know.
No, I mean, I think your opinion is actually the popular opinion. Yeah, we all know Craig is hysterical. I could watch his videos all day, but I think the point is we can't say we want to mainstream jiu-jitsu and then make it to a point where it literally can't be mainstream. To your point, what new person is going to turn on the TV and watch jiu-jitsu for the first time and see these interviews making fun of, you know, sexual abuse and pantomiming snorting coke, and is going to leave the TV on? They're going to be like, what the hell is this? If that's your first and maybe only experience, not great. Just not great.
I mean, but you also have to like take a step back and ask yourself, or one has to ask oneself, like, do we want jiu-jitsu to be mainstreamed, right? Like there's pros and cons, right? Like we have to give up some of what makes jiu-jitsu unique. Like it is sort of like a weird subculture. I mean, it's big. It's a lot bigger than it was in 2004, but it is still a subculture, and we have like these things that we can do because we're not beholden to like AT&T and Gatorade and like, you know, Independence Blue Cross, like these big mega sponsors who would just like neuter everything that we do. But at the same time, people aren't going to get paid until we do that. And it's like, you know, it's kind of like the Star Wars franchise, where it's like, you know, because it has to be palatable to a global audience, it just becomes this sort of like big, maybe soulless type thing that's sort of strayed a little bit away from what it was as this like really awesome. I'm not like a huge Star Wars fan, but like super disappointed every time a new movie comes out. I'm like, this is just somehow worse than the last one. But like, you know, the series that came out, groundbreaking, like really like pushed the artistry of like movies forward, and now it's just sort of like about making money.
Yeah.
So I don't know, you know.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I was at the event. It was a fun time, especially day 2. But I can also see how if we're trying to push the needle, if that is what we're trying to do, it's going to be hard to push that mainstream when I mean, I didn't hear those interviews in real time because it was shown to everybody streaming.
Yeah.
When I went back and watched it, I was like, listen, I'm not a sensitive person by any means, but like, hard watch. Like,
Yeah, it's a little cringy. Like, what are we doing? Like,
hard watch.
Yeah, you know, it's that, and also like, you go see a tennis match, you see a soccer match, you see a football match. There's like a standard of rules. Like, this is the sport of tennis. This is how it's scored. Jiu-jitsu is like, what are we doing? What's a sport?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's sort of like, so when my wife and I bought a house in, or I should put it this way, like in my last gym, right? We started out with like a tiny room, and then we added an addition. We had this big thing, and it's like we're kind of like building on top of like the bones of like the old thing.
Right.
And so you end up with this like weird kind of like chimera structure. And eventually it's like nothing like works the way it should have been had it been like wiped clean and built from the ground up.
Right.
And I think that with jiu-jitsu, we're still like building on certain like infrastructure and culture from like a bygone era that isn't necessarily as relevant to what we're doing nowadays. And I don't know. Again, this is just some dude talking. I think the scoring in jiu-jitsu doesn't make any sense. I think it's holding the sport back. You know, with the basic scoring being like built on the hierarchy of striking positions. That's really like, you know,
Yeah.
getting on top, passing the guard. Like, there's no striking in jiu-jitsu, right? Arguably, bottom position is better than top if you have guard, right? Like, people like compete to get to the bottom position. So the whole like the way that the rules are structured, I don't know. It just makes it hard to watch because it's like now instead of like everybody's trying to find ways to like game the scoring rather than necessarily like playing the game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean it's kind of a
No,
hot
I get
take,
what you're
but-
saying. And also, you know, another point to bring up is because different events score differently, it makes it that much harder to mainstream it. Like, imagine you know nothing about jiu-jitsu and you maybe you learn how ADCC scores, you know,
Yeah.
and you're like, I get it. And then you watch IBJJF and you're like, what the hell is going on? Then you watch CJI, then you watch UFC. Like, everybody slightly does it differently. So imagine you know nothing. How do you mainstream that when everything is so vastly different?
Yeah, I mean it's a problem that I mean I don't know if it's a problem though, but it would be a problem for anybody who wants to mainstream it, right? But
Right,
like it's
right.
also sort of like what's really cool about jiu-jitsu is that there's all these different formats, and so like, you know, your jiu-jitsu can be optimized for different things. You know, we go back to this idea that it is a martial art, and that like, you know, for all of us, our competitive window is like going to be some small period of a much longer relationship with the sport. So, you know, 21 years of jiu-jitsu, I probably competed actively for 7. So, you know, 33% of the time I've spent has been as a competitor. And then like 66 has just been as like somebody who just like fucks around, has fun, like pursues my interest, doesn't necessarily take it too seriously. And so there's the artistry there where like if you were playing guitar, like you're not funneled into just being a bluegrass musician. Like you can be any type of guitarist.
For
And
sure.
I think that like that's really one of the beautiful things about jiu-jitsu is there's so much room for personal expression through the medium of like submission grappling. You know, I don't really feel like I personally have a horse in the race whether jiu-jitsu becomes mainstreamed or not. I think probably I'd actually prefer it not to be, because if it gets mainstream, then we all have to like write our sails and get on the same path. And I'm just kind of entrenched in like what I do and how I do it. And so, you know,
Yeah.
maybe that's just a laziness thing, but you know, if jiu-jitsu goes the way of judo, now we have like very specific criteria, and we all have to be like on the same page that way. So, I don't know. It's fun to talk about though.
Yeah, no, it is. I was going to ask, do you have an opinion on these, like, I don't know what you would call it, like these contracts where they can only compete for the UFC or they can only compete for certain events? Do you have any opinion on that? Do you think that'll push the needle further or no?
Man, that's a good question. I think that like, I think it's a necessary evil in the sport. This is not like a new idea, right? This is something that you're going to see in like mixed martial arts, in boxing, and like all of these different sort of like combat sports. That's now, as jiu-jitsu is growing into more of a spectator sport, you're going to have these exclusive contracts.
Yeah.
I don't really envy promoters, because the whole like industry of like fight promotion, event promotion is like super fucked up. Like, promoters have to take a ton of risk, put a lot of money out. There's no guarantee of bringing anything in. And so like, if you're going to invest heavily into marketing an athlete, you want to start to build your brand around them, and then they get a better offer somewhere else. They're just like, fuck you, I'm out.
Right.
That can, not only be like kind of damaging to your business, but also it doesn't feel good. Like, every single coach, if you're watching this and you're a coach, you've all had a student who like, they came to you penniless. Like, you let them sleep in your gym, you trained them for free, they didn't pay anything. And then one day they're just like, fuck you, I'm out. Right. And they're training somewhere else. Right. And they're talking shit about you. And it's like, you get used to it after a while. It's like part of the life cycle. You're like, all right, here we are. But I think that like the exclusive contracts there, it just is what it is, until like jiu-jitsu athletes start to have sort of like, becomes more of a seller's market. You're just going to have to do what you have to do to make money.
Right.
And it just is what, so, I mean, in a perfect world, it'd be great for everybody to do what they want, but like, yeah, there's strings attached.
I see both sides of the coin. I think like in this situation with CJI, like how nice was it that we have these one athletes and these ADCC athletes that are able to do multiple competitions. It's definitely better. I don't know. I think it's better for the athletes to be able to compete on as many stages as possible.
Yeah, 100%.
However, I could see how having an exclusive contract could benefit the athlete if the money is there. If the money's that good, then maybe that could benefit the athlete. But as far as growing jiu-jitsu, I think getting certain athletes on as many stages as possible just makes the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's better for like the athletes. It's better for the spectators to sort of have this like free market system, right? But if you have like UFC, now we're having like institutional money coming into the sport of jiu-jitsu, and they're like, all right, we're going to start to like build this infrastructure around jiu-jitsu, and we're going to put a ton of money into it. We're going to like try to grow this into something. And now whether that thing that is being grown is actually going to be better than what we have now for the athletes, it remains to be seen. But yeah, again, that comes with strings attached. Like, you got to be a company man, even like local MMA promotions will do stuff like that. They'll have exclusive contracts. You have like 3-4 fight contract deals. And it really sucks because if you run like afoul of the promoters, they'll just ice you.
Right.
Like, that happened to a local guy. I don't want to say any names, but it was like watching, and a guy that I consider to be like a professional friend, getting iced out for like 2 years because he was a little mouthy on social media about like his experience at one of the shows. It sucks. Like, it can really, steal some of that time off of like, again, that short window that you have.
Right.
But, some of these like people are going to sign those exclusive contracts because it is a stepping stone to something else in their career. So, that's just the nature of what we do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Going back a little bit, I meant to ask you, do you have a kids program at your school?
Yeah, we have a kids program.
And is it for everything, for jiu-jitsu, for Muay Thai?
So we have something called Fit Jitsu, which is like 6 to 8 years old, and it's like kind of like a jiu-jitsu gymnastics program, not like super serious. And then we do like jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai for kids that are like 9 to 12.
Oh, cool.
Not super competitive. Again, maybe, I'm super biased, so I recognize that maybe things that I might think are like external influences may be coming from me. I find that like the types of kids and type of expectations of parents coming into the academy are not super competitive. Just sort of like based on where we are in Philadelphia and like the demographic of our students. I love all the kids. They're not super athletic necessarily, and they're not super eager to get out there and compete. Right. So it is more like life skillsy, although we do a lot, we do jiu-jitsu, we do Muay Thai. Yeah.
Very cool. But for the older kids, it's just a jiu-jitsu class. It's
so younger kids is jiu-jitsu, and then older kids we do striking and jiu-jitsu.
Very cool.
Some kids like jiu-jitsu is a really, really hard sell. Like, you have to really want to do the art of jiu-jitsu if you're going to stick with it. And I just find that at that age, some kids like they don't have the attention span, or they don't necessarily want to be as focused on like, okay, like there is some amount of like direct instruction. Like your hand has to go here, your
Yeah.
hand has to go here. In kickboxing, it's like boom, boom, boom. It can be a little bit more fast paced, a little bit more frenetic, and a little bit more forgiving in terms of like the mechanics. In jiu-jitsu, it's like if you're practicing a sweep, you have a person above you and you have to move that weight.
Right.
If you don't do it right, the weight doesn't move. And, you know, kickboxing, you hit a target. Like, you don't have to hit it right. You just got to
Right.
hit the target.
Try your best.
So I've just found that for some kids, they're just more drawn to like the punchy kicky. And some kids really love like the problem solving and the grappling and sort of like the rough and tumble of like jiu-jitsu. So we do a little bit of both, yeah.
That makes sense. Not to mention, I noticed some kids don't like that close contact. They like the distance. I want to punch you. I don't want to be on top of you. I don't want you to be on top of me. Some kids don't mind, but some kids, it's just not their thing.
It's, yeah, I mean, you know, you and I, like, it's super normal, right? Like if you and I were at an open mat and it's like, we were like, oh, you want to roll? It's like, boom, boom, slap bump. Now all of a sudden, like we're in each other's face and your forearm's in my throat. And it's like my personal space is being invaded and there's a sense of like danger. But somehow through the community, you know, shout out to jiu-jitsu, we've built like this amazing community where there's like this innate sense of trust where it's like, if I'm rolling with somebody, I'm trusting that this person like knows boundaries and is not necessarily like committing assault. You know, we're just playing a sport. But for kids, they might not really understand that like when somebody's got their hands on their neck, that it's just a sport. And it's like, sometimes we forget that as adults, especially if we're like really invested in jiu-jitsu and we put a kid into that situation and then we like, why are you crying? Like, it's no big deal. Like, he was just tap. And it's like, well, maybe they've never felt like blood loss to their brain before. Like it's pretty crazy. So
Absolutely.
yeah, maybe I err a little bit on the side of caution with that, but like just having seen stuff over the years and seeing how bad things can go, seeing some like super gnarly injuries, like some really fucked up shit. I'm just like, all right, let's just, you know, they're kids. Like, let's just make sure they're having fun. They're getting a good workout in. Like some gyms want to have like bring kids to pans and like shout out to those guys. They do a really great job. There's some really awesome kids programs in the Philly area. I'm just not that guy, whether it's my students or me or some combination of both. So I think there's room in the jiu-jitsu sphere for a little bit of everything. You know what I mean?
Just like adults. Yeah, there's kids that just want to have fun. That's okay.
Yeah.
Let's end with some hot takes. Do you have any for me?
All right. I speak from a position of privilege isn't the right word, but just sort of where I'm in my career as a gym owner. I'd say that almost across the board, most jiu-jitsu facilities are too dirty. The facilities are not up to speed. They're too small. They don't have the proper air conditioning. They're not whatever. I think that there's what we accept in our community, in our sport, is like I think the level is really low. And I think that needs to change a little bit. And that's really my number one hot take. My number two hot take is that a lot of people that are in coaching positions really shouldn't be in front of people. Not because they're bad people, just because they might not have the emotional intelligence or the experience to like sort of be in that sort of role. And so it's like, it's easy to be a leader when things are going well, but when shit hits the fan, like you need to know how to like be an adult and like solve problems and, you know, keep people safe. So those are my two hot takes. Cleanliness, number one.
Yeah, no, I think those are actually probably popular opinions. That's a big one because, as we know, as you told your story earlier, I mean, staph and these other diseases are no joke. You know? I've only been in the sport 3 years, and I've met somebody who has passed away from staph infection. I know people who have been hospitalized for months. Like, it should not be taken lightly by any means, and yet not every gym is vacuuming, mopping, having a foot wash station maybe. Like you said, there's just not there's not a very high standard.
Well, it's like, it's one of those things, like it's really easy to just not be aware of it because like it's like wearing a seatbelt, right? Like you can drive for years without a seatbelt on and it's like you're fine. So you're like, seatbelts don't do shit until like you get into a car crash and all of a sudden you're like flying through the fucking windshield. You're like, I really should have worn that seatbelt.
For real.
So yeah, I think that's a part of it. I would just like maybe encourage people, if you guys are listening, you run a gym, just like clean your fucking gym like every day. I'm gonna just share what I do because I'm super proud of this. I'm not the best jiu-jitsu coach. I'm definitely not the best in many categories. I'd say the number one thing that we do better than every gym in Philadelphia, and I'm going to challenge you guys on this one, is keeping our gym clean. So here's what we do. We have the defense wipe, like wipes. You can borrow those. Foot wash stations. We got 3 of them. We clean the mats before every grappling session. I am the only gym in Philadelphia. I'm not trying to sell my gym, by the way. I'm just sharing. I have a commercial floor scrubber. And so we deep clean the mats with a scrubber 2 to 4 times a month. Like clean the bathrooms every day. There's no bare feet off the mats. We actually I haven't put it back up yet, but we used to keep like an OSHA sign, like days since bare feet off the mats incident. And so when somebody would step off the mats, we'd ring a bell and the class would stop. We just we had signage and stuff like that. So we draw a lot of attention to that stuff, quick to call out bad hygiene practices and stuff like that. And so, knock on wood or whatever, we've done a pretty good job of just heading that stuff off. Stuff slips through. We haven't really had an issue in the last 3 years. But I think that's a bare minimum. We installed a sprung floor in the new gym, which I'm super stoked on. Yeah, so we have a foam block system.
That's so cool.
And looking back, I'm like, dude, we used to judo throw people on half-inch pads on concrete. That's kind of fucked up. So I think that I think there's a lot of room for improvement in just general facilities, sprung floor or just adequate matting, hygiene, stuff like that is really important. And I think that that's for me, I like to compete on that because I think that that's the kind of competition that's going to benefit everybody. So I challenge you guys, clean your gyms more.
No, I think that's for sure.
Although I will leave you with this. My number one pet peeve is cleaning pee off the toilet seat. Who does that?
Is this men and women?
No, just men. You can lift the seat. What are we doing? So for all my students who are listening, if you sprinkle in the bathroom, I am cleaning up your pee. It's not some random person. I'm the one who's did. So please don't do that. Please help me help you keep the gym clean. I love cleaning the gym. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I take a lot of pride in it. And so, being a gym owner, super awesome. I love it. It's a great way to stay involved in the sport and sort of contribute. Now that I'm sort of completely irrelevant as an athlete or a martial artist, so it's just fun to sort of see it, and it's been really fun to sort of see podcasts like yours and sort of this sort of ecosystem really grow because I've been doing this for 21 years and in 2004 it was a bunch of weird people in an upstairs room with no AC and no heat, and now it's sprung floors, podcasts, and just the level of jiu-jitsu is unfathomable, how good people are getting. And so the kind of education that maybe you said you started 3 years ago, you've probably learned in 3 years what took me 15.
And I feel the same about the next group coming in, right? Our new white belts are learning heel hooks. I didn't learn that until at least 2+ years in, and they're 6 months in and are heel hooking me. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
I know. It's I always feel I'm getting into old man territory. I remember when bread was a nickel. It'll happen to you too. And you're fuck you, old man. What are you talking about? But yeah, so it's really cool. And just shout out to shout out to all the Philly gym owners. I think that even though I don't interact with everybody on a regular basis, seeing sort of a lot of people who are questionable phase out. And now there's just a really, really healthy group of people in the Philadelphia area. It's just been really cool. And I think that for anybody who's training right now or getting started in jiu-jitsu or combat sports or whatever, you really have access to just some amazing instruction, amazing coaches. You said you train over at Webb. What he's built over there is amazing. You have are you an Illuminati guy?
I am, yes. Yeah. That's
what's that?
Mostly why I'm there is for Illuminati. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Man, I'd love to be a fly on the wall, just sort of see what that's all about one day.
It's tonight. Well, you have to go coach. But
dude, I would get smashed. I'd get destroyed, but yeah. But yeah, so I just think it's a really fun, I wake up every day. I work super hard, 6-7 days a week. But I've done some really, really shitty jobs, shitty manual labor. And just man, what a privilege it is to get to be in my role and to get to do the thing that I love to do and hang out with people and just have fun and do podcasts.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to ask you, you're full time at your gym?
Yeah, I'm 100% full time. Yeah.
Very cool. That's the dream.
The dream.
You're
keep your day job. Keep your day job. Entrepreneur life is great. I don't know how much time we have, but I want to tell you a quick story, right? Yeah. So I started in 2017. I started with, I had $4,000 to my name, like literally in my bank account. And I rented space. So I started a kickboxing program simply because we were training on like CrossFit mats. So I rented space from a fitness center. And Jesse and Amy of Balance, this is not affiliated with Balance Studios. I just want to give them a shout out because they like basically were like angels and like took me on and helped me get my business off the ground. I was there for a year. Then I moved into this other facility. I was there for a year, and then we had the opportunity to expand into like an additional 3,000 square feet. So like we grew really fast. And I just kept reinvesting any profit I made. I kept reinvesting. I'm like, June 2020 is going to be the year. That's like when all of my like graphs like inflect, right? Or, like all my debts are paid off. My membership, if it keeps growing, is going to get to a certain rate. I'm going to like finally pay myself.
Right.
And then like March 2020 is COVID. Oh, and I lost 80% of the business, like almost overnight. And just like, so I didn't make any money for the first, when I say didn't make any money, I think my tax returns show like $28,000 a year. Like it was rough. Yeah, it was really rough. For the first like 5 or 6 years. Wow. It was like, COVID was brutal.
What made you keep going?
Well, I mean, like looking back, you know, hindsight is 2020, but like, oh, we're going to shut down for 2 weeks. Oh, we're going to shut down for a month. And then all of a sudden it's like, you know, you're talking with like Skylar about like being in the cult and sort of like when reality just changes and you're just like in this reality and everybody's participating in it. You're just kind of like, this is just the way it is. Like, what else am I going to do? Right. So I was like, I don't know if the world's going to end. So I'm just going to hold on to my business and do what I can. And so like, my student body like really rallied. It was like one of a handful of like really amazing experiences in my life as like a toxic individualist, where I had to like let down my guard and ask for help, and like people like were like fighting, it was like competing to help. It was amazing. Wow. So like we sort of like did this like World War II victory bonds thing where I like was like, all right, if you sign up, if you keep your membership going for like $70 a month, you can keep the gym afloat, and then you lock that in. And it was kind of like this we did this whole like World War II poster propaganda thing. It was really fun.
That is really cool.
Just trying to do whatever it takes to like, but yeah, so, yeah. And so now we're doing okay. So I'm full-time now, right? But I was full-time then, but like, as an entrepreneur, there are going to be months where like you work, 60 to 80 hours a week. And at the end of the month, you pay money for that privilege of working. Like you don't even earn anything. You like lose money. So it's like you're earning like negative $3 an hour,
right?
Just to like have the privilege of being an entrepreneur. So like when people say living the dream, I'm like, yeah, but like being in a cubicle and just doing spreadsheet stuff, like with a steady paycheck, like I daydream about that. You know what I mean? Like not dealing with like, not dealing with like people texting me. At like 10 p.m. on a Sunday while I'm at my brother's birthday about like their membership. It's like, dude, fuck off. Fuck off right now. Like I have a life. Yeah. Your jiu-jitsu coaches, like they're not robots. They don't turn off when you leave the room. Like we have lives, we have hobbies and stuff like that. So just like fuck off on Sundays. Okay. Like I love you guys, but just leave me alone on Sundays. That's all. Just one day a week.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I meant to ask you, who is your black belt from?
So I got my black belt from a guy named Brad Daddis. So, Brad was kind of like the story of like Philly jiu-jitsu. I'm like old enough that there's like a geologic record, like the strata of like different timelines and stuff like that. So Brad was a guy who really, really ambitious gym owner, and he built one of the largest gyms that's ever existed in Philadelphia. So when I was his program director, the flagship gym in Philadelphia had over like 700 students, which I think like there's probably some. This is called Daddis MMA. Okay. It's Brad, like it's a story that you see, like, also if you guys are listening, you want to start a gym, like you don't own a business, you own a job. There's no exit strategy. Like I can't sell my business. I just own a job. That's so, Brad's building this thing, and then he ended up getting like having some health issues. I had to step away, and sort of like without his sort of presence and leadership, it just sort of like it just didn't turn out really well. And so the business kind of ended, and then there was like this massive diaspora. And so many of like the gym owners right now, like even John Marquez trained at Daddis MMA at some point. Like everybody's trained at Daddis MMA. It was like a nexus, right? So I got my black belt from Brad, who was under Jared Wiener. And then after Brad went out, I kind of like linked up with the Miglerese brothers, and we have a very loose thing. And so I've gotten like 2 stripes on them. So I have 2 stripes on my black belt. Doesn't do anything for me. I still suck at jiu-jitsu, but yeah. So now I'm kind of in this weird, like, I wouldn't say like Ronin phase, but I'm just like, what's next? You know, I don't really have and I love the Miglerese brothers. I think that they've done so much for jiu-jitsu, and if nothing else than just being like amazing role models in the sport. Like these dudes have been around for like 30 something years, and like haven't been involved in a scandal.
I know.
Like it's amazing. Like, you know, like, so shout out to those guys, like just being like really strong like parental figures in jiu-jitsu has been really cool. So yeah. You know, I was more of an MMA guy. I'm like, gi fucking sucks. Like, why would I ever do this?
That's where I'm at right now in my life, to be honest with you.
Fuck it. I actually like the gi now.
Yeah.
It's weird. Also, shout out to the Movement Art guys. I train there Tuesdays. I don't know if train there is the right word, or if I just get like chopped up. I exist. I exist there. I'm like the fertilizer maybe, but like, but that's been cool. You know, I think that they're like, they kind of represent like an evolution of the sport, and sort of like they've really systematized, if that's a word. So that's cool. Really enjoy like just spending time there and sort of seeing like the depth that there is in jiu-jitsu, and it kind of keeps it fresh. And so that just happens to be a gi session. It's the only one I can make. As I get older, like no gi is like, it's still fast and explosive, and I'm like, I don't want to get heel hooked. That's really the main thing.
I get that. They're also really good people as well.
Yeah, good dudes. Yeah.
Anything else before we wrap up?
This is my platform, right?
Anything you want.
We have a women's open mat this Sunday.
Very nice.
Women's open mat. Stoked about that. We could probably talk for hours about women in combat sports and the challenges there, and hopefully you know, I've really tried to do right in that regard, and that's a challenging, that's a minefield sometimes.
It really is.
But yeah, we have an open mat, Muay Thai at 10.
What's that date? Do you know?
The 7th. So we're
September.
doing Muay Thai at 10 a.m. and jiu-jitsu at 11.
Very cool.
So if you guys want to like come to a church, do some jiu-jitsu, meet some cool people. It started up being like a inside thing, and there's this weird thing in jiu-jitsu where it's like, when people see open mat, they just assume that they're invited. I was like, fuck. It wasn't really intended to be that way. So it's like kind of turned into this like big open mat. So sure, come through, sign the waiver, have fun. I think there's going to be snacks. Oh. Yeah. And the coolest thing is, if you come to my gym, you got to walk through a graveyard before you get there. So it's yeah, it's fucking cool. You should come by sometime.
Very cool. Yeah. If I might be away this weekend, but if not, I'll definitely come by.
Yeah, we're open like all the time. So
I'll be there.
Cool.
Thank you, Jackson. We did it.